Well, greetings and welcome to another episode of Lightbulb Moments. Thanks for joining us today. Whether you are with us live, which is most Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Central Time, or listening to the podcast or viewing the YouTube, we're glad you're with us today. Thanks for spending at least two of your currencies with us, attention and time, and we're super grateful you're here. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to a couple of our sponsors, Lightheart Sanders, who is a legacy sponsor. They've been a sponsor for almost since the very beginning of Lightbulb Moments, which is now over 200 episodes. And then also a shout out to Zenoti, who also is a sponsor. So thanks to those companies and for being such great partners. So we've been off a couple of weeks here, and I'm super excited about this episode because it's part of a series that is kind of goes like this. Find the Money, which was a session I did with Rebecca Ezolt, and that session was on August 7th, if you want to find it. Also, we did Find the Time, which was with Shara Madrone on July 31st. And then today we are going to feature Heath Smith, a community coach, advisor. He's actually director of advisory services, spends a lot of time with me in succession planning, which is the topic du jour. So today's episode, I would put under Find the Freedom. Actually, it's find the money, find the time, and find the freedom, because succession planning, exit planning, whatever you want to call it, does come with all of those. Before we get to that, though, just reminder that this is September. The date of this episode is September 3rd. And each year, I do like to remind all of us that September is the second new year. Phrased that by many, including the Wall Street Journal, and there's several that really see this as an optimal time to refocus, reset, and plan. So hence the term, the second new year. Kids are back in school. Summer has come to hopefully a graceful end as we move gracefully into fall. And wherever you are, we certainly hope that you take advantage of September as being a time to reset, refocus, and really look at your priorities, because it's within our natural rhythm and the natural cycle that we have, at least in this country, for September to be that time of year. Now, before I get to bringing Heath into the conversation, actually, Heath, why don't you join me in the conversation for this next piece? And good morning, Heath. How are you?
Good morning. That should do it.
So I'm slightly distracted right now because my wife and our dog, Gracie, the dachshund Heath, was just on TV at just 15 minutes ago. And they did a little segment on the local news here about the annual dachshund races that happened in Wayzata, Minnesota. And Mary and four other dachshund owners were just on live TV, and I got to see our dog up front and center. And we did just a mini race. So anyway, super cool. A bunch of text messages on that right now. It was priceless, actually. Heath, how are you today?
Yeah, good morning. Great. You're a proud grandfather and a proud father, four-legged father. So
absolutely, as you are too.
Yes.
You have two dogs, is that right?
Yeah. I have a 15-month dog. I should say puppy. She's still got puppy energy, but I had two senior dogs, 14 and 15, and so it's quite something having a brand new bundle of energy like that that we have to refocus our energy on training. And I can't I can't imagine all of you guys that actually have children. I make so many mistakes with my puppies. So
Well, listen, we're overdue to get you on here. And a little bit about Heath and your background. So co-owner of Ruiz Salons in Austin, Texas, with your partner, Alan Ruiz. The two of you are a dynamic duo. Really, it's the unity of business and creativity personified. And what a great partnership the two of you had for multiple decades here. The great work you're doing. And we're super grateful that we're able to collaborate with you, Heath, as much as we are with Community. I know you spend an enormous amount of time with our community, serving our many of our clients. You're very active in our events. But what we're going to talk about today is succession planning.
Sure.
And so our collaboration has spanned more than a decade, but I think one of the funnest things is in the last 3 years, I had spent a lot of time in succession planning and succession advisory work, educating, whatever, but realized that I couldn't do it alone. And so we've been collaborating the last few years on succession planning. And so we're going to share several things today. And by way of a heads up, Heath and I are getting ready for a 3-part webinar series that will really be about the who, how, and when. They're going to start on September 10th, and they'll go for consecutive weeks. And I think you're going to join me for all but one of them. So excited about that. We're going to give a little bit of a preview on that today. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
So over the last, and anyway, I kind of want to go back to how I opened when I spoke about this is really part of a series, Heath, where I talked to Rebecca Ezolt about find the money, share Madrone, find the time, and then we're talking about find the freedom, but it really also is about finding the money and finding the time. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's the first time I've heard you use the phrase find the freedom. And I think it's completely appropriate because, I mean, Tom, you and I, as we've been working with clients over the last 3 years, finding a path forward for a transition or an exit, whether they want to just scale back their energy they're putting into their business, or they want to sell it completely and move out of salon ownership. When they get it right, it's immediately noticeable for them. Their face lights up. There's a sense of their shoulders drop and they feel more confident. And so I think that that phrase find the freedom is super appropriate for this experience of transitioning out of business ownership and creating a plan, creating a path. So I'm excited for us to talk about it more. We've got a lot of great stories that kind of illustrate that I hope we get time to talk about.
Well, and absolutely. And, it occurred to us that we've achieved several milestones in recent months here. And we taught a succession masterclass for several different times live. And then we did a refilming of that. So we've actually filmed the succession masterclass. We had worked one-on-one with certain clients, but I think there was a culmination. We worked with a whole group. It was several private clients that we took a group together, which was a combination of private one-on-one, but also a group setting where they were able to get their own truths and feedback and help each other along. In that forum, we also brought in about a half a dozen subject matter experts for that private group: tax, wealth management, legal, family business, business brokerage. I'm probably forgetting one. And we thought, you know what? We've learned so much.
Mm-hmm.
We know quite a bit about the subject matter, but how much have we learned in like the last year and a half? So again, we're going to go through several of those stories here, and here is how we'll break it down. So we're going to go through the who, how, and why, but go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we're on the subject matter experts. We all have these people in our sphere of influence as business owners. So like Tom said, legal, accounting, tax, wealth management, if we have financial advisors that we work with. There is also a family business expert advisor. So we probably, if you're like me, probably haven't looked at and engaged those experts that you have kind of on standby from this one perspective of preparing you and your business to transition. So I just thought every one of those experts, and we have that as part of our content. All of their live shares are recorded and available, but just focusing them specifically on business transition and what mistakes to make, what to avoid. I think that their advice was invaluable and such a rich contribution to what we're doing. Answer so many questions, talk about finding the freedom, brings everyone's confidence up, because the scariest thing is what you don't know. And a lot of those scary questions that our clients were having, these experts could answer it right off the bat, and gave everybody peace of mind to be able to move forward with their plan. So Tom, I think that's probably one little jewel of a nugget from our content. All of those folks that we brought in that contributed.
Let's stay in advisors a little bit longer, okay? Because first of all, let's address the stakes here. I mean, the stakes are, for many, this is the single biggest financial transaction someone will make or won't make. Not all businesses transition, and every exit planning expert agrees it's all, that lack of planning is the number one reason. So, and we're moving into, or let's stay with advisors and experts for a moment. You and I had an experience very recently, actually, where we're working with a business that knows what they want to do, and we are really quarterbacking it, I guess, in the sense that educating the owners and the key employee who happens to be a family member and all that goes into it. But we were on a call with some of the advisors, and they're not used to really coordinating with each other. A tax person, it's like he's in his lane and like doesn't compute that, hey, there's an operational element to this. Sure, they're going to know about the legal element. There's a communication piece. There's a emotional piece. And what was your takeaway from that experience when we said, what, we're not the tax pros. We are not the wealth management pros. But what we're here to do is to make sure they're all speaking to each other. What was your experience with that like?
It's very interesting, because we've been in that situation a handful of times, and what kind of always pops up is these advisors usually work with their clients one-on-one, and so they have 100% of their confidence, 100% of their attention in these meetings whenever they meet with their advisors. When we bring multiple advisors in at the same time, there's this kind of a competing dynamic around who's most trusted, whose information or opinion matters more. And what we liked to do, what we learned from the process, what we like to do is bring them all in and put them around the table, and then the business owner can state what their objective is, and then everyone, all of these different advisors, legal, tax, wealth management, accounting, can give their input and say, and don't forget about this, and don't forget about this. And what I make a joke around just P&Ls and how our CPAs and accountants process our business information, money in, money out through our business. And I make this joke that there's a strategy at play, and if you don't know what strategy it is, you need to talk to your accountant, because they're applying a strategy. So if you don't know, if you haven't given direction, or if you haven't been brought into the conversation, you need to speak up. And so I think that kind of illustrates those types of meetings when everyone's giving advice. Have them all in the same room. I think that was a real big eye opener for the business owner to kind of understand, oh, well, sometimes these different advisors I trust so well, rightfully, might be giving advice that's counterintuitive. And there's a bit of that needs to be navigated for the end picture of what they really want to accomplish. But it was a very interesting, most recently was a very interesting thing to observe.
Gotcha. All right.
What do you think?
Well, I think that fortunately we we get to work with some great CPAs. Lightheart Sanders, for example, is always a great go-to when it comes to tax strategies. So, that's why we try to find advisors that we don't have to re-educate on the industry. So it was an interesting experience. So, all right, so we're going to get into a little bit about the who, how, and when. And before we do, there's this phrase that's coming out. It's called the silver tsunami.
Yes.
And silver tsunami is applied to the housing market, for example. That essentially what it means is baby boomers are aging, and there is going to be a bit of a lot of homes and businesses for sale. So silver tsunami applies to homes, but also applies to business. And most small businesses are still owned by baby boomers. So as we look in the upcoming years, this word tsunami is being used, and I think it's appropriate. So what was your first reaction when you heard that phrase, silver tsunami? You're looking at a guy that absolutely fits that criteria
Well, I
physically and
have
every other way.
sidewalls here. Don't worry. You know what? I think it's an appropriate title. It brings up the visual. Tsunami meaning a wave of a generation that is going to be transitioning out of their homes. But we can't forget that for small business owners, most businesses actually in the United States are owned by small business owners. And as they get to an age where they don't want to own these businesses anymore, it does create kind of a wave that's happening. And we shouldn't also ignore that someone's home, primary residence, or rental properties, those assets and their business, their small business, is probably the other most valuable asset that they own. So both of those things in this tsunami of decision making, that they want to simplify, scale back, homes and businesses will be part of what is kind of in play with that transition. So I think silver tsunami is a little bit of a sarcastic twist to it, but it is appropriate. I think it brings the right visual there.
All right, so we're going to go through the who, how, and when. We've only got about 20 minutes. So we're going to go relatively quickly. And, it's going to be story driven. And just to be very clear, we have a very, very high standard of privacy with clients here. And some of the stories that we're going to share with you, they might even be about people who are listening in today. And please understand that we disguise, and we might even alter those stories just a little bit, but they're absolutely spot on. So, all right. So the who, always a big question that comes up. So who are you going to transition to? And it broadly fits into two categories: inside sales and outside sales. Inside sale would be key employee or family member, or a combination of both. And a outside sale would be someone that is outside the family or not currently active in the industry. So let's go through one lesson that we picked up on regarding inside sale, and a bit of caution in terms of overlooking people, and great story around that one. So
yeah, well, let me chime in there. So, inside sales, as Tom was saying, they could be family members or they could be key employees. And one kind of cautionary bit of caution that we could throw into the consideration is don't overlook great people, because there's two pieces that we've learned with the businesses and clients that we've worked with over the last 3 years. Is some people knew exactly who the profile of their buyer would be. They were looking for a key employee, and if they didn't have that person, they were going to find them and groom them. Some people knew it would be a family member, either son or daughter, or son-in-law or daughter-in-law, or even a sibling. So that was more rare, already identifying who your buyer was, than the assumption that I plan to sell. I just don't know who I'm going to sell to yet. So what we learned from conversations with our clients was that oftentimes it was really easy for them to overlook someone that would have been their successor, someone that was in the wings, but they just hadn't considered them. And there's a couple of things here going on emotionally that I want to call out. One is someone that's overlooked. Sometimes we do that intentionally. Maybe you know how hard it's been to be a small business owner, and you don't want to wish that onto your children or to, one of your employees. Or you might just not have considered them at all. And what we found was in several instances when we talked through the who, could it be a key employee? Could it be a family member? The business owner landed on a person, and when they went and had a conversation, they were delightfully surprised that that person said, "Oh my gosh, thanks for thinking of me." Either, "No, that's not a good idea," but it yeah, I would be really interested in talking about how I could buy the company. And that happened more often than not for people that really were focused on an outside buyer. These business owners really thought that their buyer was going to be outside of the business or outside of their family. And lo and behold, instance after instance after instance, the person that is on track to buy their business is actually either a key employee or a family member that they just hadn't even considered.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no cookie cutter solution to this, and every situation's different. And it was actually pretty cool to see a business owner. We'll share a little more. I'm comfortable sharing a little bit more detail. So it was a family member that currently was out of state, and it was like the perfect buyer, but the owner decided that she didn't want to ask this person just because she knew it's hard work to be an entrepreneur, thought the answer would be no. And to your point, brought it up, and fast forward to today, and they're on a track. I
Yeah.
mean, it went from they're on a track. And huge, huge, huge to really see everybody happy by it. All right. So other things about the who. So we've already described there's inside and outside buyers. So let's stay with inside buyers a little bit more. We also know that this can come in multiple shades. For example, there's one particular, well, I'm thinking of one right off the bat, of a combination of a key employee and a family member, which creates its own dynamics because the family member, so let's say we have two equals, both key employees and different roles, but the owner decided that the family member would have more shares. And the key employee was completely fine with that. So it's the importance of communication. It's the importance of sharing your truth and all of that. So lots of things come up in key employee. So anything else before I move to outside buyers?
Yeah, one that pops to mind was a bit of a surprise again for a key employee. The business ended up selling to a key employee, but that key employee was relatively new to the company. So don't forget, your buyer may have been with the company for a very long time, or they may be new. Don't overlook your newest employees as well, because sometimes they're the most eager. They're the ones that are always raising their hands saying, yes, I'm excited. So it could be someone that doesn't work in your business or just started might want to be on the path to ownership.
Yeah, nice. Got it. All right. Also, with key employees, we've seen many false starts, like third time's the charm. Seen that, for example, Carrie Bennett, very open, Carrie Bennett and Anna Johnson from California. They've served as a great case study and guest for us. Great example of, took a few different rounds, but Anna actually bought the business from Carrie Bennett. Everybody's super happy. But then we've seen some others that are in the early stages and that they had a key employee in mind and it just fell through. You know what? You just got to keep going here, because like we said at the beginning, this could be one of the largest transactions you make in your life or the one you don't make. So, all right, let's talk about outside buyers. And certainly common. and certainly a viable option. In many cases, people we've worked with, they've exhausted all possibilities. They even thought of that person that they didn't think of, and it still wasn't going to be the right person. So they're on to finding an outside buyer, which could be someone that's another local salon that wants to add a site, or it could be someone from outside the industry. Now, business brokers, I haven't been a big fan of. But I've recently become a bigger fan of business brokers, and we have references for one in particular. But here's what's happening is there's a lot of money that's out there, and there's a lot of people are looking to buy service businesses these days, you know.
Yeah.
So there's been a little bit of a surge in activity in terms of outside buyers. Any comment on that before we move into the how?
Well, I think that there are people out there, there are individuals, there are other businesses in your market that might want to grow and add a location. That might be your outside buyer. The individual might be someone that is new to your community, but has a plan to open a business. What we found, and I'm living through this right now, is the cost of new construction is so prohibitive. It's so extremely expensive right now to build out a brand new location from the ground up. So a lot of companies that are looking to grow are looking to do that through assuming or buying existing locations. So right now, if you're wanting to sell your business and you have a great lease and a great space, you're probably at the top of the list as far as paths forward for people that are wanting to become a business owner. A friend of mine called me a couple of weeks ago, just moved cities, and asked me, how do you move forward? There are a couple of salon companies that are for sale in his market. And he's like, I just need one, and both of them are on my street. Or the street I want to do business in, how do I move forward? And so that's when, you connect someone to an expert like a broker, the right broker, I might say, but they don't want to build from scratch. They don't want to go through the new construction costs. So their number one target is finding a business that's for sale. So I think that there are people out there. There are also other businesses that maybe are not in the hair salon part of the beauty industry, but are also branching out and diversifying, that are interested in buying salon locations as well. We've seen that over the last 2 years, where there's someone that has an ancillary business within the beauty industry, and they want to grow and expand and open hair salons. And so they just decided they were going to look in key markets and find locations that fit the profile, and then they're buying. So I think by the end of the year they'll have 10 in 2025. So those are opportunities if you set up your business right to be transferred. Then you're looking for the right match. That's all you're really looking for at that point, is finding the right buyer, and that person can come along in a lot of different ways.
So we're going to leave the subject to who for now, but that will be our first webinar, which will be a week from today, I believe noon Central Time. I think it was put in the chat there. And as part of the who, we're going to go quite a bit deeper into that, to also consider that the who in certain cases isn't necessarily for a full exit. In many cases, find the freedom is someone wants to retain a key employee, and that key employee's reached the ceiling in different ways for that person to either become an owner, which are quite high stakes for that. So there's other ways to retain a key employee that falls within the vein of succession planning, because in many cases, people don't want to fully exit their business. What they do is they want to find that freedom. They want to find that time. And they also want to make sure that a key employee has another reason to stay. Okay, let's get into the how. Okay. And in general, we break this category, and a lot of the work we do, we break it down into what's called readiness. In particular, there's business readiness, there is seller readiness, and buyer readiness. So let's go through that, okay?
Yeah.
Business readiness. So we've seen some examples of where someone really was motivated to sell their business, but things came to a screeching halt because the business was not ready. And that's why planning is and getting some good advice is great, because that really kind of sucks, to tell you the truth. You're all ready to, you got it all set, but the business isn't ready. And here's a few examples, and you can piggyback on these. Real estate. So for example, real estate is owned by the owner, but that real estate's in the same company as the business. Secondly, is the businesses are all commingled and you want to separate one. And third is there's some debt. There's some debt that has a lien on it, or a lot of it's okay to have debt in the business when you sell, but sometimes the debt, if it becomes the wrong kind of debt, or it's debt that has a lien on the business, that puts a screeching halt to it. So piggyback on the topic of readiness here, and particular business readiness.
Yeah, the one that has come up most recently over the last couple of years is still tied to real estate, but it's leases. So do you have enough time left on your lease that the new business owner, the buyer, would feel comfortable buying the business, and they feel like they have enough time to get their feet under them before they're going to be put into a position where they have to renegotiate the lease with the landlord? So in the last 2 years, our professional advice is to start any lease negotiations really, really soon. We're talking 12 months or greater. If you have a lease renewal coming up, part of business readiness is to make sure that you've buttoned down everything that you've buttoned down, and that there's a high level of predictability for the new buyer. And this is one that time after time after time, the seller is frustrated with the interaction with their landlord. And so I think that when it comes to the term of the lease, a lot of leases right now, especially with corporate entities that are your landlord, they've been very, very predatory. And we see business owners try to renegotiate their leases, and they're seeing 20, 30, sometimes 40% jumps in rental rates. And it's a huge setback. If that happens right at the same time you find your buyer and you're trying to push the transaction forward, it could really throw off the deal.
Yeah, and talking to a business broker, it's like they don't want to take on a project that has a lease that's expiring like in the next 6 months. They like to have at least a year left before the business broker will even take it, because they just know when you get into the heat of a transaction, it'll kill the deal. Let's move to another area of readiness. And, we worked with a lot of great businesses over the last year, and it's truly a privilege to help these businesses and trust us with truly is their biggest asset and their baby, if you will. And, we had a conversation with one owner, very successful owner, multi-location, but her books worked for her, and she was able to run the business very well, very profitable, but there is a single common language when it comes to financials. And so that was a big wake-up call for her to say, well, that's great, but once you bring in someone else, whether it's key employee or buyer, they're going to want your books to be in a very specific format.
Mm-hmm.
So anything else that, when it comes to business readiness, top of mind for you, Heath?
The last thing that I would say is a lesson that we took away from the shared experiences of those that did successfully transition, sold their businesses, or are on a track to, is start early. Start as early as you can with your planning. One key thing for business readiness tied to financials is the term trend. How is your business trending financially? Because they want to see not just 1 year of profitability, but 2 years of profitability and 3 years of profitability. And that all blends together to suggest the direction of the company. So The stronger the trend towards profitability, when you go for your business valuation, the better that will turn out for you. And so if you think you're going to be on track to sell your business in 3 years, then you want to make 2025 as profitable as possible. Get your books cleaned up, eliminate all of the kind of the fluff so that you can drive that trend as strongly in your favor as you possibly can. So I think trend is probably a key piece that is a takeaway. Plan, start early. You're in it for the long game, whatever that length of time is. But make sure that you're making progress every single quarter, every single year, so that when you are ready to sit down and get evaluation, all of your ducks are in a row, and you've got a great history that your broker and a potential buyer could look at and see a high level of predictability that it would be successful after it's transitioned.
Yeah, another word for trend is momentum. You want to make
Momentum.
sure you have the right momentum. And I am thinking of a particular business where their momentum was not good, and they pulled away and said, you know what, I want to. We're going to take all the education we can. We're going to get our plan together, but we also realized that we're not going to. In their particular case, they've exhausted inside buyers. There's no family members, no key employees. They've tried to go down that route before, so it's going to be an outside buyer, and they've made a really good decision that we support to say we're going to do everything we can to get the momentum going the right way. So, all right. We could go deep into seller readiness. We could go deep into buyer readiness. I'm also making sure that we keep today's session a little bit more concise. So the how session that we're going to go deep into, I think, is in 2 weeks. And you're going to join me for that session, which is awesome. So we're going to go a little more deeper into that and give some more examples. And so we'll move away from how. Let's get to when. I think we probably have both repeated it at least 2 or 3 times each. So I don't know that we need to repeat the importance of starting early,
No.
making sure you have lead time and all that kind of stuff. But some of the when is going to be driven by what you want to accomplish. All right. So if someone's true desire to get into succession planning is to find the time and the freedom, they, which could mean that they have a key employee that they want to retain and they want to find more time, that can move relatively quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that a lot of the when is dictated by readiness. When you think the business will be ready. And, we had an interesting conversation regarding the when very recently. Sometimes the when is going to be purely driven by tax strategy.
Yeah.
Tax alone has, multiple zeros next to it in terms of the impact. So some of the when, like, for example, a general rule of thumb, and I know Kevin Lightheart, CPA, tax guy, he might even be listening in this session today. He'll probably tell you that when in doubt, you want to do it at the end of a year or beginning of the year. There's also tax law, which, so a lot of the when could be driven by tax. A lot of the when can be driven by momentum. What else when it comes to the when piece, Heath, that you want to jump in on?
Yeah, I do want to reiterate the tax. One story that's coming to mind, a client we work with, brilliant, hats off to them, because the transaction will be them and a family member. And so they're making decisions around their tax implications, but they're also considering their family member as well. So they're really making a whole 360-degree decision, and they wouldn't be able to do that without bringing advisors to the table, every advisor. So their accountant, their tax, legal, and they're making a really great decision for both parties. So that takes time. That takes quite a lot of time to lay a plan like that out, working with all of the moving pieces. So I will reiterate again, planning and timing. I think our broker that we work with, they said the fastest transaction they ever had selling a salon was a 30-day turnaround, and the buyer was paying all cash. But that was the fastest it's ever happened. But normally they won't work with a client that doesn't have a lease for at least 6 months to 12 months. They really like a 12-month runway to be able to market the business and sell the business. So um, the planning part, giving yourself enough time. The last thing I would say, Tom, that is a consideration is the emotional connection for the seller. There's a lot of emotion tied up, a lot of identity, a lot of ego, a lot of pride in what they've built. So it takes time for them to separate all of their feelings around who they're going to be on the other side of this. I think that also we shouldn't discount. I know it's kind of the intangible part of it, but emotion influences so much of a transaction, the mindset of the seller, the mindset of the buyer. So giving the seller enough time to come to terms with how this is really going to affect their life and in some way their identity, I think is also an important thing to remember as part of that equation.
Yeah, I'm also, the when is dictated by so many different things. I'm also reflecting, Heath, sometimes the when is dictated by the buyer. Let's say, hey, we've got a family member that has expressed a strong interest, but it's not the right time for her or him. So maybe this particular family member is not necessarily of age yet. Maybe the family member lives out of state. So no cookie cutter here. And when it comes to succession planning, not necessarily an area you could just chat GPT your solution, you know.
No, it's
There's a
so
lot of,
unique.
yeah.
That's my experience, Tom, with everyone we work with. Every business's situation is so incredibly unique. The factors that they have on the table that they're organizing into a transaction are so different than the business next to them. And so it is so custom. Um, I I just want to say, like, the saddest thing, and if this is your strategy, this is great. If you want to run your lease out and hand the keys back to the landlord, and just walk away, that's great. But what we have seen is that business owners that didn't really even think their business wasn't worth a ton, they had a downward momentum, maybe a lot of turnover, their sales weren't where they thought they should be. A successful broker or a transaction could still happen for that person
Right
if
on.
they have enough time. So the when is really important. The planning, starting early, even if you've got downward momentum, you don't feel a lot of confidence that you'll sell that business for a lot of money, there could be a buyer still for it. So you still could walk away with some value instead of just handing the keys to the landlord and saying bye. So I've been surprised with how many businesses do sell when they're in those sort of circumstances, and the owners, the sellers are just delighted that they got something for their hard work.
Awesome. Well, you know, we a lot of our the work that we did with a whole group expired. We wrapped up in July and took a month off. Then now in September, we've got some new offerings, a way to help people, a combination that meeting people we're at. In the past, we really only had one or two ways for people to get support. We've expanded that, so we're super excited about that. We're also excited about doing this webinar series. So, and you know, again, I mean, if you're a business owner out there and you spent 15, 20, 30 years building this business, you've had your ups and downs, you've grown a brand, you've grown people, starting to think about what's next. Maybe you want to bring in a partner, maybe thinking about selling, whatever. Everybody's got their why, maybe time with grandchildren, just time to, you know, pursue the next act. But, you know, it's not something people do every day. And it's a great area to get guidance and which is why we do the work that we do. So now, Heath, before we wrap up, one of the things that I wanted to spend a minute talking to you about was your coaching and ownership journey, and how you actually came into Cunity to begin with.
Mhm.
We just take it for granted. You and I have been collaborating for over 10 years, but how did you get into Cunity from your own, point of view?
Oh my gosh, well, you're gonna take me way back. I you know, if I had to pin down a date, it had to have been 2010, 11, 12, somewhere in that range, and I was looking for content or a structure for leadership development. So I really wanted to work with my leadership team, and I was looking for resources to help develop them. And then I believe we signed up for a program that you had just launched. It was in Scottsdale, I believe.
Yeah, or Tempe. Yeah, Tempe,
Okay,
yeah.
Tempe, Arizona. Yeah. So we went, um, I took my three leaders at the time out to that program. And I believe one of the key pieces that we took away uh, around planning was the 8 seasons calendar. And then a lot of content the managers were exposed to, they continued to use. And then you and I ran into each other a couple of years later at, I think, Serious Business, and we had a conversation. But it just sort of was like a nice organic blending of my business's needs and the resources that Cunity was offering. Really great. You have really great team members over the years that make such an impact in our industry, and it's not a surprise because those people that are attracted to work with you, Tom, and with Cunity really care about the industry. So it's just easy to work with people that are focused in the way that you guys are focused on helping the industry. It's why this whole succession program is so impactful. We hear it over and over again. Is there a lot of people that can help us, but I really want to work with somebody that understands our industry. And it's I remember coming into the industry, and when 30 seconds they told me how they pay employees and pay stylists, I was like, oh my gosh, hold on, what? I came from a corporate background, and it was that point I learned I knew nothing about how to run a business until you've run a salon business. And so a lot of what we do and how we run our business and how our businesses operate, an average professional out there, a CPA or an attorney, a banker, they need a translator. That's what we found. They need help understanding what we do. So anyway, I think that that's probably what I would say that I gravitated to the most was the people, the impact that you make, the resources that you continue to offer. And I mean, it just makes sense.
Yeah. Well, you're a great collaborator, Heath, and I'm super thankful. And thanks to all of you who listened in today. Let's give Heath a virtual round of applause. Bravo. Heath, I don't know how many of these you have, but you'll get your $1 million light
Thank
bulb to
you.
add to your collection. So you're probably worth millions now.
Well, I appreciate the time. Thanks for having me back. And it's a really great topic, even if we have some business owners that we worked with that are really on a 7-year plan to transition. So again, I would say this type of content, if you expose yourself to it slowly over time, it'll sink in, and you'll have that knowledge base when you need it or when you want it. If you wait till the last minute to educate yourself, you'll really struggle to find the right resources, the right information at the right time that you need it. So
All
anyway,
right.
join us for the three webinars. I think we've got the dates that they'll publish, and I love that. I love this content. Nothing helps businesses more than this type of content. It's so impactful and helps with how they think about their business, how they think about the relationship they have individually with their business. All of it really is so important for you to expose yourself to. So, Tom, thanks.
All right, Heath. Thanks. And thanks to everybody for listening in today, joining us. We'll see you in another episode. And here's to having a great September and a great rest of the year. And thanks to all of you for listening in today. Bye now and see you soon.